Good morning, sir.
Heard a good thing about you doing that chapel thing the other day.
Oh man, that was fun to get to do. Yeah, I get. They let me. They scrape the bottom of the barrel every once in a while, and I get to do it. So that's how that.
Anybody who talks about Jesus,
That's right. That's right.
it's great. It's a great thing.
She does. Blue's a good color for her. Okay. That means don't do a very long one.
I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to overpromise.
Right. I'm sending my notes to everybody this morning. You got a cell phone on me? Yeah. And I got to send one to Barbara back there. All right. If you want to open to Ecclesiastes, we're going to finish it and review it all in one lesson. We're gonna cover the last of it, and then we're gonna cover all of it. Ambitious, I know, but we will succeed. We will prevail. All right. Several folks out not feeling well. Bobby texted me this morning. I think the flu's in their house. They have all got it. So him and Adrian and his wife are all staying home. My wife's staying home. What else we need to make updates about, or anything good you want to share?
George Coxwell, who owns Perry Fish Market.
Okay.
George Coxwell's wife has been diagnosed with cancer, pretty severe. And I told him that we would mention it, put her on
Sure.
Amanda Coxwell.
Okay, absolutely. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm glad you get to see me.
Yeah. You feel better now?
A lot better. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to say you don't look no better.
Well, I know. Hey, you see, you don't even have to be a regular around here before I just get shot by everybody.
I mean, when you're absolutely handsome, you can't look any better.
Well, I know that. See, thank you. I see. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right. Well, since I can't get him to preach this morning, Henry, do you mind kicking us off with a word of prayer before we start this morning?
Dear Lord, thanks for this wonderful day you've given us, Lord. Please be with everyone here, and please let us all have attentive minds and all participate and listen to what we studied today, Lord. Please be with us all in worship, and please let us worship together and enjoy this morning, Lord. Please with everyone I forgot to mention. In Jesus' name.
Amen. All right, because it's my class and I can do what I want to do, and we got some of you young heads in here, I'm going to go back to chapter 11 real quick. Because we were talking about it Wednesday, and I was like, man, this would be good stuff for y'all as well. So this is for free. This is for free. Ecclesiastes, about life lessons. We're going to review a little bit about when he says everything is meaningless or vapor or smoke. Is that a universal sentence, or is that like, do you really believe that life is meaningless? Let me just ask that. Is everything in life meaningless? Huh? So what's the caveat to that then? What's the asterisk to vanity of vanity is all vanity? What's the asterisk? Without God? Earthly things grab a hold of it. So we get a life lessons. Chapter 12 was where we actually finished, was about getting old. And it ain't fun. It ain't for the weak, as they say. Chapter 11, I want to read this just for some of you guys about one of the things that we've learned in this book. How much can you really control? What's going to happen to everybody, whether you're good or bad, whether you sacrifice or don't sacrifice. There's one fate that happens to everybody. What is it? We're all going to. So, chapter 11, verse 1, cast your bread upon the waters. You'll find it after many days. Give a serving to 7, also 8, for you don't know what evil may be on the earth. He talks about sowing and reaping, verse 4. If you constantly watch the wind, you'll never plant. If you constantly watch the clouds, you'll never harvest. What was the point we made from that? What does it mean to cast your bread upon the waters? What does that mean? All right. Because if you wait till perfect conditions, it'll never happen. This one's for free because it's some of whatever, but one of the things I remember my parents saying, if you wait till you can afford kids, if you wait till everything's right, well, we're going to get this right, we're going to get this right, we're going to get this step, we're going to get this step. And if you do that, what? Either it'll never happen, or God will show you that you can't plan everything that you think you're going to plan. Well, first we're going to finish our degrees, and then I'm going to get this promotion, and then God will go, surprise. So, as we've learned in other chapters, embrace the moments as they, in verse 6, in the morning sow your seed, in the evening don't withhold your hand, for you don't know which will prosper, either this or that, whether good or light. So live life, embrace the moment. Verse 9, rejoice, O man, in your youth. Let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Verse 10, remove sorrow from your heart, put evil away, enjoy being young. Because chapter 12, you're going to get older. I love, Grandma, do you mind? I think, it was either yours or I forgot who, did you read? Do you remember, are you the one that read this where your translation kind of interpreted like who the strong men were and the keepers were? I think it was yours. Do your version, verse 3. I don't know which one you read from. All right, read 12, 3 through 6.
3 through 6 in Ecclesiastes 12?
Yes.
Okay. In old age, your body no longer serves you so well. Muscles slacken up, grip weakens, joints stiffen.
All right, that ain't the one. What's the other one you read from? Read your...
Holly has it too in NLT. I'm on my phone.
Holly, do your NLT then, 3 through 6.
Remember him before your legs, the guards of your house start to tremble.
That's the one.
And before your shoulders, the strong men stood. Remember him before your teeth, your few remaining servants stop grinding. And before your eyes, the women looking through them. Before your eyes, the women looking through the windows seem dimly. Remember him before the door of life, opportunities is closed, and the sound of work fades. Now you rise at the first chirping of the bird, but then all their sounds will grow faint. Remember him before you become fearful of falling and worry about danger in the streets, before your hair turns white like an almond tree in bloom, and you drag along without energy like a dying grasshopper. The caper berry no longer inspires sexual desire. Remember him before you near the grave, your everlasting home, and when the mourners will weep at your funeral. Yes, remember your Creator now while you are young, before the silver cord of his life snaps and our golden bowl is broken. Don't wait until the water jar is smashed at the spring and the pulley is broken at the well.
All right, I love that I heard some chuckles, and I won't point out anybody, but there may have been someone, like when we got to certain verses, like elbowing the other one. I'm not gonna call anybody out this morning, but it made me smile in my spirit. And I think it was specifically around, how did your verse read there in verse 5 about the grasshopper dragging along like a dead grasshopper? What did that say?
Without energy,
Like a dying, just dragging around like an old dying grasshopper. And somebody got elbowed right about that point in this assembly hall this morning. I just want you to know during the sermon afterward, the front pew will be available if anyone would like to atone for their. I'm glad that you can smile. So not as the younger man, this is not my place to speak. You guys tell me what you grab a hold of from this chapter.
It's all true.
All right?
Do what you can when you're young.
Say it again.
Do what you can when you're young.
All right?
To the best of your
To the best of your, why you can. Why you can. All right?
That's what you do when you're young and able to get out and sow, and then you can reap later on in your life.
Because this time's coming where,
You ain't gonna be able to.
remember when you could just saw boards all day long and not even hurt? You're still there, right?
There's a lot of things I used to do. We got up, we go by daylight, don't quit till after dark. I don't like.
And not hurt?
It's not hurtful then.
Yeah.
But it's more than that, Dan. It's more than doing the physical thing.
Okay.
It's saying, remember him.
Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you're young, don't just wait till you're.
Old to remember. Okay. Kevin?
Because
Be-
he's what you're gonna grab a hold of when you get to that stage when you can't do any of those other things.
And so if you haven't already built that relationship where you can grab a hold of him, then so just this chapter is no different than the other chapters. Getting older can be a vanity of a wasted life if you've not spent it with the caveat of, if you haven't chased God, getting old is just getting old and it's miserable. Or it can be a celebration of a lifetime of history and experience of someone who's now later in their walk with the Lord and they've been chasing him their whole life, and it can be a glorious thing that you can see. Like the blessed in the sight of the Lord is the death of his loved one. You know what I mean? Like just something like Grandma.
And it's being intentional throughout your life. You don't just have intention to do something, do it.
Because it won't happen, especially the chasing God part is not going to happen by accident. That will have to be an intentional effort.
Paul's good exactly on it. He didn't chase the Lord in his youth, but God spared him for later on in life. And then he grabbed hold of the Lord, and he was ready. Even when he was, he preached many times, I'm ready to go home. But if you're young and you squander all that, things may happen and you not get that chance to enjoy the Lord when you do get it.
We had a camp counselor that he was an older fellow. And I remember as a kid going, and he'd always talk about it. It probably didn't hit me as strong then, but it's funny that it's never left about. He says, you want to get when you're in your older life, he goes, when you've retired, you're 60, you're 70, whatever, you want to be able to this is your goal, where you and your wife or you and your spouse can sit on your front porch in a rocking chair and you can look back over your life with a smile on your face, knowing that I served God, that I lived a good life. He goes, that's your goal. That's your goal. Your rocking chair with a smile on your face, knowing you made God smile. That's your goal. And for whatever reason, that image has never left my brain. It's all true. Getting afraid of heights, strong men ain't as strong. So that line kind of, I guess, about the eyes, like seeing dimly through the window, I think is what that one's more about. Rising up at the sound of the bird. I've heard multiple of you guys talk about. One of the questions I either ask you or I hear y'all talk about when you come in is how early you woke up this morning. And like, I am not looking forward to the time. And it's when you can't sleep past 4 a.m. is not a good existence. or how early do you go to bed? Do you go to bed any earlier getting up that early? You still stay up late and you still, no matter what you do, you have to get up at 4? You can? And still get up at 4?
No.
Okay, all right. So you can sleep in some. All right. Grandma can still sleep in. Don't call Grandma before 8 o'clock. She can still sleep in.
Check on her around 2 o'clock.
Is that second nap? Yeah. Their third?
I think it's interesting too, the things he says that we ought to be doing while we're young or younger, or the things that we should have done.
Okay.
Not just impetuous once and done type things, go to the Grand Canyon. No, it's just lifestyle things.
Okay.
And I think it goes back to the fact that our lives should reflect, what we believe and not just what we say. It is a way of life for us.
Well, and some of the big, because we're pursuing wisdom, your relationship with your spouse, how you work, all those things, those aren't just one-time events. That is a lifestyle. What is the conclusion of the book? What? All right, so with that in mind, what does that mean? After everything we've been through, fear God, keep his commandments, for this is man's all. For God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing. But we actually end with judgment. So that ending with judgment, how does that temper, flavor, whatever? What does that do for your?
Not necessarily focus on the judgment, but the whole book up to this point has been an examination of how we live.
Okay.
And his conclusion is that we should live in the Lord.
That's what makes it not, that's why I think it's the asterisk. That's why it's not all vanity. It's vanity if I don't live it like this. And I think that's why the last line that brings judgment into it is so key, because you live all of your life without God. Well, what do you have to look forward to? A calling into account of, how did I spend my time? If it seems like life's going to go on forever and it's really just a vapor, how did I spend that time? That's kind of one. So I want to review some stuff then, because now we're kind of at the end. I tried to send it out to as many as I could about, let me just ask you this, and I'm going to kind of bounce around even some of the notes, those of you that got it. Do you think the author, or let me ask you, what do you think the author believes about God? Do you think he believes in God and believes that that is a reality? What do you think? Just in general, things that he would say about God in this book. We got here, fear God, keep his commandments is the conclusion. Chapter 7, verse 18, he who fears God will escape them all, talking about these things. 7:29 says, God made man upright, but we seek out many schemes. What does the author, you think, believe about God? His power, his place, his position?
I don't think he ever doubted, because he knows who gave him all of that wisdom.
Okay, yes.
But I believe that perhaps, maybe, that blessing of knowledge and wisdom caused him to do a lot of the things that he did. Kind of like there's this guy that teaches Bible at North Carolina, his name's Bart Ehrman. Studied under one of the greatest guys ever, F.F. Bruce. And he studied himself out of Christianity. And I believe that Solomon here almost did that himself.
By the pursuing all these endeavors of mind. It wasn't all just sinful, but just pursuing work, pursuing building progress, pursuing gardening and all these other things, pursuing to their end. So you almost feel like this last chapter, and I think it's an older Solomon who's writing this, and we're talking about, as Solomon sitting on his front porch in his rocking chair, is he having some regrets? As he's evaluating, how did I spend my time? How might I have done better in this? And to a certain extent, are we not all going to do that? Did any of y'all feel like you're batting 1,000 up to this point in your life? We can all say it in some regard, in various areas, and some more than others in different areas. I could have done better. But that's, to me, this sober reflection that he's thinking about, how could I have done it better? How did I maybe misuse some of this time and talent and treasure that the Lord gave me? G-Paul?
And make sure when you're sitting out on the front porch in your rocking chair that your wife's right there by you.
That's right.
She's going to come out and tell you to get up and get busy.
Yeah.
She's not there.
10-4. All right, let me get some other ones. What do you think Solomon's thoughts about wisdom would be? What do you think he would say about wisdom? Good thing, bad thing? Okay. How about what he says in chapter 1 and verse 18, for in much wisdom there's much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. What's that mean? Sometimes the more you know, the bigger burden you carry. Ignorance is bliss in some regards.
I think you would say it's the same as money
Okay.
or other things. It's all in how you use.
Well, it's almost similar to your last point about him increasing in knowledge is what all in some regards probably led to some of these things. Other things he says. Now he does say in chapter 2, verse 13, wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. He would say in chapter 9 that wisdom is better than strength. Wisdom is better than weapons of war. So he values wisdom. He's going to tell us in Proverbs to seek it, to pursue after it. You don't want to be a fool. What makes a fool a fool? We already talked about how you recognize one walking down the road. And I think we said, didn't we say like Tyler Slaughter's picture? I think, isn't that what we said? You weren't here to defend yourself. So we just, that. We know what what makes a fool a fool? I'm not talking about how you recognize them, but what is it that makes a fool a fool?
They blabber all about nothing they know about.
Okay.
Or everything they don't know.
I mean, that's how I read. They're blabbering on. That's where we went with that. But why am I a fool?
Don't stop to seek wisdom before you speak or act.
It's not the speaking, it's the lack of being willing, or maybe it's I'm doing so much talking, and if I'm doing all the talking, what am I not doing? I'm not doing any listening, I'm not doing any learning. So what makes a fool is that not wanting to seek wisdom or thinking that someone can teach me something. You can actually be pretty intelligent and make yourself a fool if you don't think anybody can ever teach you something better, and you get yourself in a whole lot of danger with that. Let's talk about real quick. Let's survey what's going to happen to all of our stuff. Chapter 2, 18 through 21. What's the vanity of that? What's the futility, the vapor, what's the frustration of that? That here you've worked hard, you've built your mini kingdom. You've bought lands, you've built houses, you've got tractors, you've got cars, and when you pass away, what's going to happen to all that stuff? Say it again. Yeah, well, it could be a huge fight over who gets what. That is part of it. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen families fall out over $1,200. It's ridiculous. What would you say? What would you say was going to happen to it?
Somebody else is going to enjoy everything you work for.
All right, so they might enjoy it. Or you might have someone that just like, as soon as you die, guess what's happening to your stuff? Cha-ching! Man, I'm telling you, junk man. So there's a futility of that. So what am I supposed to learn from that? Don't ever buy anything, don't ever build anything? Remember our word balance. So what am I supposed to learn from that? If all of my stuff's going to be, everything I build up is going to go to someone else who may or may not even appreciate it or enjoy it. What am I supposed to do with that knowledge? It doesn't mean don't build, don't do, don't whatever, but just remember, if that's what I'm grabbing hold of, it's like grabbing a hold of smoke. That's the empty, that's the vapor. So we've got it there. We talked about wisdom.
Some people bury all their stuff.
I've heard it.
Nobody else can have it.
I've heard it. Yep, they don't want them to have it. I did hear about one man that said he's taking all of his wealth with him. I think I told y'all the story when we got to that section. And he told his wife, I'm taking it. You're sending all my money with me. You don't get it. And so she put it in his casket with him. It was a check. Wrote a check for it. All right. What does he say? Let's go to chapter 5 and see what he says about worship. What did Solomon say about worship? About when you come to the house of God, what should you draw near to do? Is that similar to what we talked about? What makes a fool? Fool or wise sometimes is just the ability to. So when you draw near to the house of God, draw near with open ears, open heart, wanting to let him in. Don't give the sacrifice of fools. Be careful about making vows, right? Don't let your heart utter anything hastily, for God's in heaven, you're on earth. Let your words be few. When you make a vow to God, do what? You better pay it. For God has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed. Better to not vow than to vow and not pay. And this messenger of God show up and you say, oh, it was a mistake. Fear God. So you've got some advice about, what does he say? You can go back literally just one chapter, a few verses. What did Solomon say about friendship in chapter 4, 9 through 12? Let's read that second. That one's worth reading again, 9 through 12. Who wants to read this morning? Feel like chapter 4, 9 through 12?
Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken.
What's Solomon say about friendship?
You need it.
You reckon it's lonely being king?
Yes.
Sometimes? Imagine, I wonder, like this in there about, who do you go to? Who's he going to talk to? And you say, well, the one person you can always go to, this emptiness, he's always got the Lord to lean on. This ought to develop that. But just friendship in general. Why do you need it? Why do you need it? Okay. In what way? I know how you and I keep it. What does riding in the woods with a friend do for you? Man, sorting life out. Why did like half a dozen hens gather up here this morning? What was going on up here? Yeah. I heard solving problems, getting your husband straight. Was that anything? Comparing notes about who was more perfect than the other, probably, right? Y'all was probably having a contest of who had the best husband. If I had to guess, that was the conversation. Did Oscar win? He did. He's the best one out of all of them. Okay, that's what I thought. Just making sure. Why do you need a friend? When you fall down? That's right. Anything in there about the church you can see? Why does God command us to come to church? Why is this not a solo endeavor? That's right, because you're not always going to be the strong one. What's that threefold cord have anything to do with?
Stronger.
All right.
Life.
My favorite illustration is dry spaghetti. You just get one, maybe even a couple, but then you grab that whole enchilada, that whole rack. Are any of you women strong enough to just crack that whole thing? Are you really? Man. The whole thing at once? I'm coming to your house to see. There ain't strong men that can't do that. That guy can't even. Can you rip a phone book in half too? Maybe a Perry one. All right. In a similar vein, go to chapter 9 and verse 9. What does Solomon say about marriage?
Live joyfully.
9:9. Read your chapter 9, verse 9.
Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity, which he has given thee under the sun, all the days of thy vanity. For that is a portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun.
Now, Billy, I just want to point this out to you in my New King James. At the end of verse 9, after saying about rejoicing with your wife or living with your wife, it does say, in the labor which you perform under the sun. So living with your wife is labor. Just want to point that out. I'm not pointing that at anybody else, but that is a job. That is a work to do.
But you see, that's a hand.
Yeah. So similar to where we ended with, you're going to get older, whatever. What do you take away from live joyfully with the wife of your youth, all of the days of your life? In fact, it doesn't even say the wife of your youth. It just says, mine says, live joyfully with the wife whom you love all the days of your life. Is it a blessing? Can be. Can be. Should be. Same guy will talk about dwelling in rafters too, so be careful what kind you marry, but it should be a good thing, and it's one of the blessings that God gives to you. So enjoy that. Embrace it. All right, I want to, because we read all of them. I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people to read. I know I got that one wrong because I got the same verse written down there twice. Hang on. 5, 18, 18 and 19. All right, I need a couple of readers, and I'm going to read them back to back to back so you see this theme. Kevin, you mind reading one? 2:24. Mr. Vince, you feel like reading? We read chapter 3, verse 12. You want to read, Brando? Chapter 3, 22. Mr. Bill, you want to do 5, 18, and 19? And then John Henry, chapter 9. We're going to read 9 that we just read, but 9 and 10. 9 and 10. I want you to see this theme all throughout. What does he say about work or what we should do? If it's all vanity, it's got to be caveated because of this theme. So 2:24, 3:12, 3:22, 5, 18, and 19, 9, 9, and 10. And we're just going to read them back to back to back. All right.
Nothing is better for a man than he should eat and drink, and that his soul should enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw was from the hand of God.
3:12.
I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live.
And I have seen that nothing is better than that man should be happy in his activities, for that is his life. For who will bring him to see what will occur after him?
All right, 5, 18, and 19.
Even so, I've noticed one thing, at least, that is good. It's good for people to eat, drink, and enjoy their work under the sun during the short life God has given them, and to accept their lot in life. And it's a good thing to receive wealth from God and a good help to enjoy it. To enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God.
9, 9, and 10.
Live joyfully with the wife and thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity which he hath given thee under the sun. All the days of thy vanity will live. That is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou holdest under the sun. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do it with thy might. For there is no work, no device, no knowledge, no wisdom in the grave, whether thou wilt.
All right, the fact that he says that similar thing that many times, what's the point of all that? What's he saying we should do? He's encouraging something about what we should do. What is it? Work? Okay. I mean, I would put what work's in there and doing good as something. And what else? Enjoy life. And then and the one that John Henry read said, whatever your hand finds to do, what? Do it with all your might, because where you're headed, there ain't no working or knowledge or whatever. So while you got it to do it. If you're going to buy shoes, do it. Because the time is coming where there'll be no shoes to be bought. If you're going to buy tools, do it.
Change out a microwave 2 or 3 times.
If you're going to remodel your house, do it every other year. Do it. You ain't taking any of the money with you anyway. And your kids are just going to squander it anyway, so you might as well use it. Go into eternity with a zero-sum balance. Maybe that might be overstated. Huh? Yeah. Leave me something. Leave me a little bone to chew on. Multiple times he says, enjoy good in your labor. That's what, and talking about it's a gift of God to do it. Do good in your life and to eat and drink and enjoy the good of your labor. That's a gift of God. Rejoice in your works. That's your nothing better to do. It's good and fitting to eat and drink and enjoy the good of your labor. John Henry?
We've always been told it's not work if you enjoy it.
That's right.
If you don't work, you don't eat. That's what the Lord said.
So whatever my hand finds to do, there is some joy to be found because I can do it to the glory of God. You can sweep to the glory of God, right? You can cut grass to the glory of God. You can cook to the glory. I mean, whatever mundane is only mundane if I'm not doing it with idea of God. Playing a soccer game, playing sports in general can just be a mundane thing, or it can be I'm using and honoring and thinking about God blessing me with the opportunity to do this, and so I'm going to do it for His glory, to put a smile on His face. Right? Every job, everything your hand finds to do can be done to the glory of God if I've got that mentality. So enjoy it. Because the time's going to come where you can't or you don't feel good enough. Travel while you're young. I'll throw that in there. Some. Build stuff while you're young. All right, and we already talked about what he said about aging. Chapter 7, 1 through 4 and verse 14. Why is it better to go to a house of mourning?
Let you know the brevity of life.
Okay. Sorrow's better than laughter. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning. The heart of fools is in the house of parting. In chapter 7, 14. In the days of prosperity, be joyful, but in the day of adversity, consider, for God has appointed one as well as the other. You learn something. It's a reminder about how short life can be. So learn those lessons. And if it causes you to make things a little sweeter or enjoy them a little bit more because you've had that sobering thought, then that's wisdom. That's wisdom.
You also need to consider the work that God has done.
Okay. Consider the work that you said that God has done.
Yeah, verse 13.
Yeah.
Consider the work of God, for who can make that straight, which He hath made good.
You know, there's something to be said about, I had to do a kind of a funeral / celebration of life Friday morning about a youngin' that had passed away. And it's like, I don't know what God's plan is in that, but I have to believe that's something that He's behind that or part of that in some regard, in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So consider, learn that lesson. How does the idea, that last verse of the whole book, how does the idea of a final judgment impact our decision making? Or how should it?
I like the way that my Bible says, fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
Okay.
So that's the reason we're here.
Yep. I think to bring Him honor and glory. That is your purpose. Your designated purpose, whatever else you may do, building, gardening, whatever, it's not about that. What you're here to do, your job, no matter what else you're doing, is to bring glory to God. So that's why He says, whatever your hand finds to do can bring glory to God. You can bring it. You don't even have to work a job. In motherhood, there is bringing glory to God, right? Everything, I'm telling y'all, there is no such thing as a vain, meaningless task if you don't want it to be. Everything. You can listen to music to the glory of God. You can clean your house to the glory of God. You can love other people to the glory of God. Everything you do can be done for that. That's all I had written down.
You'd ask, what about the judgment?
Yeah.
The Anglicans have a prayer that says, most merciful Father, I confess to you for the whole company in heaven that I have sinned in thought and word and deed and in the things that I have failed to do. Here in verse 14, he says everything is going to be judged, including every secret, whether, your thoughts.
That's right.
Whether good or evil. So it's a warning sign that don't go through life, and it's part of what he's been saying, without thought.
Yeah.
Be deliberate.
Well, and
recognize even if you had a profane or an ugly thought, that's judgment worthy. You need to seek forgiveness for that, much less the overt things you did or the things you knew you should have done and you didn't do it.
I mean, it's a scary thought, not just the deeds that you've done, but every thought. We're going to be judged for intentions. Whether I may not have murdered you actually, but in my mind, toast. I'm going to be judged for stuff like that, right? Angry, hostile thoughts, bitter thoughts, jealous thoughts. It's not just the deeds you do, but even sometimes the thoughts that you think. Thank you, Lord, for grace. Thank you, Lord, for mercy and forgiveness. So I understand that there is a vanity. There's kind of a, it can be a depressing book. I don't think it has to be. I think it as, here is a wise man who did more than I'll ever do, who have resources I'll never have, and said, Dan, whatever, if you've got any tiny speck of what if only I could try this, then I would be happy. This is a guy that did anything and everything that you could possibly imagine, whether money or machinery or gardening, architecture or power or whatever. And whatever you think that, if I could just, then I'll be happy. He did it and said, you're going to find emptiness there. So look for God. And so wherever you are, whether you're a poor king, or a rich king, or wherever you can find joy, you can find contentment if you'll look for God. Enjoy the life that God gave you to do. I think it can be an encouraging type book of, I can learn a lesson without having to experience it myself. So thank you, Solomon, for taking every excuse and every endeavor off the board. So I can say, I don't have to try that. I can be content with where I am and be pretty happy with what I've got, wherever I am. Joe?
The question to me is, why don't we follow what we say we believe?
Because I'm not perfect. Because we're not. And that's why do I shouldn't have to come to church every Sunday if I'm being perfect, right? But for whatever reason, I need the Lord's Supper every Sunday.
Why did you, as her version says, why did you consider it a duty to come to church rather than to come to be encouraged?
That's right.
It makes a huge difference.
That's right. And I think it's some of both, to be honest with you. Do you come because it's commanded, or do you come because you want to?
Should be both.
And I think there's a little bit of both in that. There really is a little bit of both in all of that. Yes, sir.
You get old, you've been in church a little while, you've been through this book a couple of times. The thing that's jumped out to me that was encouraging was when whoever read the Message the first time, and I'm not a fan of the Message, never been a fan of the Message, but when it translated that word vanity to smoke,
yes,
that's more encouraging. It's not that what you do is worthless. It's just that
it's a vapor.
It's so temporary.
That's right. And I said that's kind of where we started, and that's actually the Hebrew word there.
Yeah.
I think us interpreting it vanity puts a negative spin, and it's not inherently negative. It can be, but really it's just life is like a vapor. The last thing I'll have, because it's kind of, I remember Bill Hartsfield started us out this way, is chapter 1, verse 3. What profit has a man for all of his labor in which he toils under the sun? And you quoted at that time kind of the New Testament version of that. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and to lose his own soul? And that's kind of a New Testament summary of the book. There is profit. There is a point of our existence, a point of our labor, but understand you can gain everything we have here and miss it big time. So just, it's kind of proper perspective. All right, we'll wrap up there. My plan, this is where I've got in my head, unless you tell me otherwise, is that we'll pick up Wednesday in Ephesians. So if you want to start reading a little bit ahead on Ephesians, it won't take me super long. Bill's got some thoughts. He's preparing a study on the Lord's Supper for us, but he's not quite got that done. So Ephesians is kind of where we're going to go. If you want to chapter 1, I mean, if you read the whole thing, it doesn't take you 20, 25 minutes to read the whole thing, but chapter 1 is kind of where we'll kick off on Wednesday. Ooh, right before the alarm. I got done just in